Well, I see you, George. I use visual confirmation. Let us know if you can't hear us, because we can't hear you if you're speaking. Adrian Takor. Jamie Rogers.
Here.
Hey, Jamie. Harding Dowell.
Here.
Hey, Harding. Peggy Henson. Peggy, you may be muted too. I know you're on there.
Did you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yes, ma'am. And Joe Smith. Great. We do have quorum, I believe. Do we have any public comment on agenda items? No public comment?
And Mr. Motley, if I may, if anyone does wish to make public comment and is having any issue with sound or getting through, they can send an email to board@lextran.com, and we can put those into the record. I know there's, even today we're having a little bit of issue with some of the sound quality. That's kind of the age we live in, but we do encourage folks to make public comment. And if you have anything, please do send it to board@lextran.com. Thank you.
Yeah. Take another beat. Okay. Next is what? Was that comment? Okay. Next is the approval of our June board meeting minutes. I'll give you a second if you need to review. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye or give us thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Move to the chair's report. I have just a couple things for our chair's report today. First of all, notice we have our two newest board members joining today. Quick shout out, I wasn't able to join and properly thank Elias and Marcy for their service to the board, but we are grateful to them and the time that they spent with us. We are happy to welcome Jamie Rogers and Harding Dowell. Jamie is the Deputy Director at the National Association of Chief Administrators, State Chief Administrators. Harding is a project architect at Group 4 Architecture, Research and Planning. Just looking forward to working with you both. Glad that you're on the board. Anything you all want to say? Say a quick hello.
Jamie, you lead off.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be on this board. Looking forward to learning more. We had an excellent training with Carrie and her team, really learning about the back history of all the initiatives and priorities of this board. So really looking forward to working with you all.
Yeah, looking forward to getting to know all of you. I know a couple of you by name, but looking forward to getting to know everyone, and proud Route 4 resident here.
Harding, it's been a while. We met. I don't know if you remember. We met some time ago. That might have been maybe a couple years now.
Yeah, at the International Book Project.
That's right. That's right. And Jamie, we're getting the band back together. We go way back. Grateful to have you all. Really quickly, making sure that people know where to find the Lextran Healthy on Board recovery plan. We have a plan, just as background, we have a plan that kind of models the reopening, the phased-in reopening plan that you see at the state level and the federal level. Our plan is at lextran.com. You can see that along with the route and schedule information. Currently masks are required for folks who are riding as passengers. It's a requirement that I hear so far folks are complying with, and so thank you for that. We are testing a prototype. If you go to Kroger right now, you may see the plastic barrier in front of cashiers. We're testing a barrier that's very similar that helps to protect our operators. You all know that especially when folks get on the bus at the front entrance and offer their fare. That's a very kind of intimate connection between the operators and the passengers. So we want to make sure that they have as much protection as possible. So I just want to make sure that you have that background. And then, as always, it's been a very rough time. And our Lextran team has been a real steady hand. And so just grateful to everybody, our operators, our maintenance, and folks in the administrative building. So I believe that's all I have for our chair's report. Any questions there? If not, we'll go to the performance report.
All right, if you could give me 1 second to get this pulled up. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes, sir.
So I am going to fill in for Jill as best I can today. Talk about the June 2020 performance report. We start off with our mission statement. We serve people in our community with mobility solutions. Just give me one more moment, please. Okay, so highlights from last month. We had the primary election to Kroger Field. We did offer a shuttle from the transit center to Kroger Field. Towards the end of the month, we reopened the customer service window at the transit center. And we had training. Our training department's been very busy. You're going to hear more about that over the next couple of months, but we did a session called Managing Your Team Through Crisis with Compassion. Most of our work continued to focus on the pandemic, the monitoring and the response. Some of the ridership data I'm going to show is part of this monitoring process. So this is our fixed route system performance from June. It's the similar trend that we saw the last couple of months. We were doing great up until February. Things shut down. Ridership bottomed out in April. The recovery has been slow. The green is our monthly ridership. The gray is our monthly average. So that's what we try to beat every month. So as you see, it's narrowing as we go. In July, we'll see that pattern continue. The same sort of pattern for our paratransit. Again, doing great to February into March. We sort of bottom out and then slowly recover. If we think about this recovery in terms of the percent change relative to the monthly average, this is what the two systems look like. The green is paratransit, the gray is our fixed route. The shape is similar, doing great. Above that horizontal black bar is 0%, so that's where we want to be. That's the average. We're above that, we're doing, in my opinion, really well. Both systems bottom out into April and then slowly recover, but paratransit is recovering maybe a little bit faster than fixed route is. Our system productivity, as we know, June is the end of the fiscal year, so we can do some comparisons between this fiscal year and last fiscal year. We were down about 500,000 trips on fixed route, 26,000 or so on paratransit, and that is fairly consistent no matter how you look at it between weekday, Saturday, Sunday. Revenue miles and hours were down for both, again, as we sort of shrank service in response to the pandemic. Trips per mile an hour is the same thing. We were trending really well into February, and things sort of bottomed out. Some safety indicators. This year, I think we did fairly well with preventable accidents. It wasn't as, last year was great, but this year was pretty good. But the injury frequency was well down. So I think that's to be celebrated. On the paratransit side, we were pretty close to the goal of 2 preventable accidents per 100,000 miles. So we did well, I think, there as well. In our maintenance department, they completed 100% of their preventive maintenance inspections for the month. So that's always a good thing to report. For service quality, we got this postcard that says, "Dear Lextran, thank you for making sure that we are still able to get around easily, for making sure our public transportation is clean and sanitized." And that speaks to the effort. Our maintenance staff started to take extra steps to clean and sanitize our buses back in January. And then as the pandemic unfolded, they stepped up those efforts and then even got support from our operations staff. So it's been all hands on board to help keep our vehicles safe and clean. So, and this speaks directly to that effort. Lastly, customer accommodations are trending up. Safety complaints are also trending up for June, and that's on both fixed route and paratransit. And I think what's happened is our ridership base, so the number of folks are riding, has shrank. So they're being vocal, they're being very appreciative of what we're doing, and they're also reporting those times when they say, hey, maybe someone's not wearing a mask or something's not going on. So that's good feedback that we're getting. Over the year, on-time performance for both systems, we're at or above 90%. That's what we're shooting for. I think that's a very good sign. And then operating expenses had decreased the last fiscal year on both fixed route and paratransit. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those. If not, I'll turn it back over to Carrie.
Thank you. The next part of the monthly performance report is the financials. So I believe Nikki Falconberry may be having technical difficulties. She's not. Oh, good. She's back.
I'm here now.
I'm as she gets everything loaded up. We've definitely had a little bit of a week here with some technical difficulties. We had a issue with the copy machine, so it's just been par for the course this week. So, but good. Okay, she made it back. So
Turn it
take
off.
it away,
Turn
Nikki.
it on, I think is the
Yeah.
Right.
I'm thankful for a speedy IT department. When we look at our financials for this month, as you'll notice, it's unaudited. That means that we still have some entries. Normally, when we do our board report, we do not make any entries after the board report is presented. But in June, we will. We will have some year-end entries and some audit adjustments, things that you usually see in the audit, such as the pension assets and things like that. And you'll see those when we present the audit in a couple months. Right now, our operating cash for June 30th is a little bit higher than usual because we had some grant money come in. That was timing was probably about 3 months quicker than usual. So that puts us about $3 million higher than this time last year. Our accounts receivable will be adjusted. We have not finished all of our entries. We will take, as you'll notice, last year, the work in process was 0. That is grant purchases we have done. This year, we will move those work in process. So you'll see that as 0 too also when we do the audit. We have the Fifth Third loan that we have for the construction project. We have right at about $5 million left. It's been we took the loan out for 10 years, so we have reached the 5-year mark. So halfway there. So we also have stayed basically around the same as we were last year. That's not going to fluctuate too much unless we have some unusual circumstances. And we did not purchase buses last year, so you'll see a little bit of a difference in the amount of money on that. We'll move on to the statement of revenue and expenses. And our property taxes came in at $19.2 million. That's good. We budgeted 18.7, so that gives us about $480,000 more than we budgeted. We're very pleased with that. That makes up just about the difference for passenger fares that have been unenforced since March that we stopped collecting fares in mid-March. Our other revenue, you'll see the variance there. That is the UK money that not all of that's UK money. Part of it's the lease payment that comes back to Lextran from Lextran Real Properties. We will make that entry also. And then the rest of that is from adjusting UK due to the COVID-19. We were very pleased with wages and fringe for the end of the fiscal year. We were under budget for We were under budget for professional services. This is the area where we talked about the engine rebuilds and things like that. And we did do some last minute projects that we didn't think we were going to be able to do. But we did, such as the parking lot restriping and things like that. We are under in diesel fuel. It's been running about $1.22 a gallon here lately, so that's been good. And our paratransit expenses are under budget. Obviously, we've still been doing the shadowing service, and they've been had some trip reduction, obviously, since the middle of March. But everything else is looking really good. We're really pleased of where we ended for year end, but I'll be glad to take any questions that you have.
Nikki, I have a question on the balance sheet.
Uh-huh.
And just on, I'm getting a lot of feedback. On the work in progress, when that gets zeroed out, where does it get added in?
I think George has called in twice. I see 2 Georges. And I think that's what's, yeah, there we go.
The work in process will get distributed to the assets. Part of that buses that we purchased and some equipment. So that will be moved from work in process to our asset. Don't know if we lost Mr. Ward, but hopefully I answered his question. Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. Just when Fred mentioned earlier the operating expenses were down, where's the most impact coming from? Is that primarily the fuel?
It is the fuel. Yes.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you, Nikki.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
To the action items, Carrie.
Yes, the next action item is a resolution to award a contract for maintenance uniforms. One of the benefits we provide our maintenance team, including our mechanics, our maintenance technicians, our service workers and utility workers, is a full maintenance uniform that they can they pick up here and leave here, so that everything is taken care of for them. As you can imagine, some of the work within the maintenance department can get pretty dirty, so we like this benefit for our maintenance team members. We issued an RFP on May 11th of this year. This was the end of our current contract with our maintenance vendor, so a normal processing of the contract, and received proposals back in June. The staff evaluation committee reviewed the proposals. 3 were found to be compliant and responsive. These were from Aramark, Cintas, and UniFirst. And of the 3 proposals, the evaluation committee ranked Cintas the highest, and it is recommended for contract award for the maintenance department uniforms. And we have included a cost sheet, so the pricing is included on the cost sheet. It won't exceed that, and the contract will be awarded for a term of 5 years. So I'm happy to take any questions on this resolution, if there are any.
There are not any questions. Thank you. Is there a second?
A second. It's Adrian.
All in favor, say aye. Show us your names.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that one moves.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Who started?
Hey, Rick.
Thank you.
All right, oh, here's the pricing sheet. And the next resolution is to purchase solid state hard drives for onboard surveillance system. Onboard our Lextran buses, we have a mobile or onboard surveillance. These are cameras placed on both on the interior as well as the exterior of the vehicles. We purchased the original system in 2010 from a company called Verint, which was part of our overall fixed route intelligent transportation systems or ITS service to Avail. So that included a company called Verint back in 2010. And since then, Verint has changed names. They are TSI. And this contract or this resolution is to purchase 65 solid state hard drives to replace aging hard drives that are part of our onboard surveillance system. So the hard drives are similar to what you see on a laptop or a desktop computer. They're a way to record the video while the bus is in motion, traveling throughout its route. And the goal here is to have a little bit of a sturdier hard drive because, as you can imagine, your laptop doesn't quite get as much exposure to the elements or vibrations as you would on board a vehicle. So the price for each hard drive is $817. We did do a cost analysis to ensure that this was a fair and reasonable price, but we are purchasing these through the TSI, which is our onboard surveillance vendor. So the total price, $53,180. Labor and installation will be completed internally by Lextran staff, and the source of the funds are from the budget is our 2021 capital budget, and it's the ITS technology services line item. So happy to take any questions. I may defer any technical detail questions about a 4 terabyte solid state hard drive to Alan or Fred, but I'm happy to take any questions about the overall resolution.
Questions, anyone?
Carrie, and I may have missed this. Where's this company based out of?
I don't know. John Gibbons, do you know where they're based out of? If you're on and can quickly answer.
Yes, they are located out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Avail, which is our overall fixed route integrator, is also in Pennsylvania. So, but, okay.
This is Rick. I move to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Peggy.
I was curious about the sole source provider. Would there be ongoing maintenance of these, that there will be a cost involved, or?
There is ongoing maintenance cost. The majority of the cost is this capital piece, and we have internal staff that can do most of the ongoing maintenance. Since this is not the current hard drives have been replaced over the course of 10 years. So we have replaced some, but we feel like this is the best course of action to keep everything as up to date as possible. But hard drives, especially on a vehicle, don't have a long lifespan. So,
Right.
but we did check to see if there was a better price on the open market, if you will. But there would still be some configuration from TSI with the hard drives as well.
Okay. I'll second the motion. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Just making sure. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Or show your thumb.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. So moves as well.
The next resolution is an update of the bylaws of the Lextran Board of Directors. These were very, very minor changes that includes updating the address to 200 West Loudon. We made some changes in Article 5, Section 4, referencing the Chief Executive Officer. And then there was Charter Appendix A was listed, I think, as just maybe sort of a typo from other versions, so we deleted that. And then we did include a copy of the annual disclosure statement. I sent that to the Board of Directors earlier today, and our staff have signed this annual disclosure statement. So essentially saying that any contract or agreement that we enter into, either as the board or as staff as they're evaluating proposals, that there's no perceived or obvious conflict of interest for anything, so from where you work or a family member might work. So we've included those for your reference. I thought it would make sense to just sort of do a resolution for these bylaws. These changes were minor. There's no substantive change, but I thought it would be worthwhile to just reapprove or have a resolution for the bylaws since we did make these changes. So happy to take any questions about the bylaws or any of the changes, but the resolution is to approve the bylaws of the Lextran Board of Directors.
Carrie, I saw in the changes the adjustment of the language around the CEO from naming it as he throughout the document to.
I will admit that that's something that I personally have felt. Honestly, I felt that was important to change because there was no other gender-based pronouns throughout the document, and it certainly made sense to be a little more gender neutral throughout the document.
I was grateful for that change. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
For Peggy Henson.
Ms. Peggy, is there a second?
Jamie Rogers seconds.
Right. All in favor? Say aye. Anyone opposed? Oh, as well.
Mr. Motley, if you are amenable and the rest of the board is amenable, I would suggest that we move the officer elections up to right now in the agenda just to take care of any other remaining action item if everybody's amenable to that, and then we can move on to the strategic planning presentation. So we have our attorney, Ann Tyler Morgan from McBrayer. She's on the phone if there are any Robert's rules or procedural issues, but I would turn this back to the board if you're amenable to have our annual officer elections.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, this is George Ward. I'd like to make a motion to name the following as Transit Authority board officers for the coming year. Christian Motley as chairman, Adrian Thacker as vice chairman, and Nikki Falconberry as the secretary treasurer.
Actually, I do have a question about, we do this once a year and I always forget. Do I still call for what's the?
That's where I'm hopeful that Miss Morgan or someone who is more familiar with the Robert's Rules of Orders, because I actually had that very thought, is I assume that you stay as chair until there is an official vote, but if we have done something outside of Robert's rules, I apologize, but I think you're okay to call for the vote still. But please, somebody chime in if that is not the appropriate course of action.
Yeah, I'd ask if there a question or comment. If not, we can entertain a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Excuse me a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
So I got you, Peggy. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you all.
Excellent. Thank you. Congratulations. Appreciate everyone's service and willingness to move that on the agenda. I thought that just might be a little easier flow with the action items. So if everyone is all right, we will move to an update on our strategic planning outlook for this upcoming fiscal year and sort of closing out the calendar year of 2020. So we every few years we have undertaken a strategic planning update going back at least to 2005 2012. So this is an ongoing and continual process, not necessarily undertaken every year or undertaken each year with a really in-depth, long, drawn out study. And really strategic planning is intended to be a quick and sort of give you some focus. So the most recent undertaking was in 2018. And with that came our mission statement and our branding program. We instituted 3 key pillars. I'll talk a little bit more about those. And then this year we did an update starting in January, if anyone remembers, January of 2020 this year, and met as a group, went through a workshop, also met as staff, and then the pandemic hit. So we've had just a little bit of a slower process for this update for this strategic plan than maybe anyone would have planned, but had that work session back in January, had a facilitated meeting with Lextran staff. We followed a similar format and process for each of those where we talked about advantages, trends, challenges, opportunities, and strengths. Also have done a presentation back to staff and a presentation back to the board on sort of the results of those. I did a quick assessment amid and sort of with the COVID pandemic happening right now of what we might be able to accomplish or what we want to accomplish. And then now we're here at this presentation. So what we found is, we have a lot of great work to celebrate. And I'll just run down quickly some accomplishments because this feeds into our strengths and our advantages, which can provide input into challenges or things that we, maybe need to address. Our response to COVID has really been amazing. The teamwork and the willingness for people to respond quickly and understand changes has been wonderful amidst a very negative and terrible thing that we're all dealing with. We've made progress on our RAMP program that's making improvements to bus stops throughout the community. Our branding and website has been redesigned. I encourage everybody to explore the Lextran.com. We've made some progress on our fleet replacement, have made definite inroads into recruiting and hiring process, have had a number of successful grant awards, other regulatory submittals, and a successful audit, and then other, forward momentum on many other projects. So a lot of great work to celebrate. But what we see when we look at some of the trends, and these are more of the general trends that we see in our, the United States, and then even here in Fayette County. We have this multi-generational workforce and culture. So we have, greatest generation, millennials, Gen X, and now, we're seeing Gen Z, the newest generation about to enter into the workforce. And so that seamless technology is really demanded and expected by some. A lot of people will enter the workforce only ever having been in Zoom meetings or WebEx style meetings like this. Then we have others who maybe don't either have access as much to technology or just that wasn't how they came up or have that same level of expectation with technology. So that puts sort of attention on how we distribute information, how we communicate, how we do things. Locally, there is talk about the needs of affordable housing, the changing residential needs, density, gentrification. I also have commercial development. We heard last month about the corridor plans and the Nicholasville Road study. So I think kind of what we heard through the course of the board meetings and also with staff is that this trend about technology and the sort of multi-generational or multi-level expectation with technology, as well as the housing, commercial, residential development here in Fayette County. The industry trends that we see, first, really COVID, responding to the COVID pandemic and the pace at which we will be able to rebuild our ridership. So when we went through our ridership changes at the during this month's performance report, I don't know that I don't know that I can put an adjective to it. I'm not sure that I'm encouraged or if I'm even cautiously optimistic. But we're seeing people come back, and some of that is people willing to come back because they've gotten jobs or they're returning to work, after being in ISO or quarantine. So I think that's good, but we're still in the midst of a global pandemic, still requiring masks. I will reiterate, wash your hands, watch your distance when you're around people, and wear a mask. Some other industry trends, generally automation, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, emissions reductions. We do see a trend, an increasing demand for paratransit. You saw that on some of the ridership, that paratransit is, increasing a little bit at a greater demand as relates to fixed route. Some interest in the trends and disruption. You'll hear the catchphrases MOS, or mobility as a service, mobility on demand, MOD, bike, scooter share. Some of those things have were definitely of the moment, and people were talking about them very much up until January or February. So those trends are still there. They just may have taken a little bit of a backseat to some of our immediate need to respond to delivering service in the midst of a pandemic. Transit system redesign projects, so a little bit about how you deliver service or where your service is. That's definitely an industry trend. And a lot of discussion about fare free, mobile ticketing, different ways to have people pay for and access your service. So that's kind of a quick summary of some general trends, local trends, and industry trends. If anybody has any questions about those, I'm happy to take them, but it's kind of a snapshot of what we gathered from the staff and board and just experience in the industry. So some of our advantages, we see ourselves as affordable. Oh, go ahead, please.
Jamie, did you have something?
Yes, and so I was the question with automation. I've seen some and kind of apps and user friendly other transportation, and almost come up with an app of, is your bus crowded? Are there a lot of people on the bus? And so I don't know if that's in terms of COVID something. There's a couple apps where you can just self-report. I got on a bus, it was really crowded. I got on a bus, it was not crowded, but I don't know if we were thinking about that.
We have, and there is some of that functionality exists today with our system. Our Avail is our tech vendor, so we might say Avail, our Avail system, and that the only issue that we have seen with that is we use an automated system, so an automatic passenger counter, which is basically counts people coming on board the vehicles through three sort of laser detections. It's not like you won't get hurt if you walk through it. And if you've been on a bus, you've walked through it, so it's fine. But basically some essentially laser technology to count. Those numbers can be off ever so slightly. If you board a bus carrying a child and maybe you have a backpack, the passenger counter may not count those precisely, but we do have that technology in place and are looking at ways to really, try to make that information as accurate and reliable as possible. But we have that in place right now.
And so someone can get online and look, this bus is crowded, this is not crowded, or is that only an internal access?
We have that You can, but sometimes we don't have that feature turned on the My Stop app, and that's the Avail My Stop app. But we have been in discussion right now about how to get that data accurate so that we can put it out there and promote it too, because I think the key piece is promoting it.
Yeah, excellent. Sounds like really good conversations getting that available to the public. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So advantages, we see ourselves and we hear from the community, affordable, accessible, dependable. You know, we operate on a set schedule. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need a credit card to use our service in comparison to some of the other service delivery methods. You know, a key advantage and something that we're really proud of is we have professional, well-trained and safe drivers. They go, you know, a drug and alcohol program, defensive driving. So we're really proud of our coach operators because of their training and, you know, the reputation that they help us provide in the community, that we have professional drivers. And we hear, you know, we're a great choice for special events. UK Games, Keeneland, again, with those special events not happening, that advantage is maybe a little bit more neutral, but we do hear a lot of great feedback on that. And our sustainability efforts towards environmental and fiscal sustainability are some of the advantages. But with advantages, you know, you always have room to improve or areas for improvement. And this is one where our internal staff, you know, our staff in the internal meetings, you know, we really we were honest with ourselves, and sometimes you don't want to hear it, but we were, you know, we want our service to be more direct and more frequent. We know that we have an aging fleet, and we want to be able to work on, you know, having newer vehicles in our service delivery model. We know that bus stops and shelters are not what they need to be, and we want to continue to work with our partners at the city and at the state level to make improvements both to the immediate bus stop, but also to the, you know, pedestrian infrastructure around the bus stops. And then the transit center, I think our last COA back in 2015 that had the line, the transit center's design could be described as utilitarian, was the nicest way to describe the, you know, the transit center. So it's in need of an upgrade, and we have put in some grant applications for that. And then, you know, one of the other places where we know we want to improve is just that comfort level and familiarity with Lextran for new and potential riders. A lot of feedback I hear is, well, I'm not exactly sure how to use Lextran. You know, I don't know where it goes. So making sure that everybody understands what we are and what we do, I think will help with new or maybe potential riders. So kind of just to sum up, you know, to synthesize our challenges and also the trends is one of the things, you know, we want to be able to increase frequency. We want to be able to maximize our existing service, you know, attracting new riders. So just put a lot of these things, but those were the top things, like the bigger words mean that more people felt like that was an important thing, you know, a challenge that we had is being able to increase frequency, maximizing the existing service, attracting new riders, others. And then we'll just have to add that our biggest challenge right now is responding to a global pandemic. So everything that we try to do is going to have that layer of making sure that we're operating safely and effectively in the midst of this pandemic. So when oh, please.
I apologize if you mentioned this before. Can you remind me, so that word cloud, for example, is that drawn from the board conversations, or is that drawn from staff conversations, or is it some of the mix?
That challenges was drawn from the staff meeting where we did the exercise with listing the challenges and then people indicating, you know, with a tick or a sticker, which one everybody thought was the highest. But in looking back through the meeting notes and sort of the summary of what the board said, I felt like those were similar enough that it was, those kind of summed up the challenges.
That's good. I just want to call out the staff input on the process.
Thank you. So as we went through this update to our strategic planning efforts, we felt that the mission statement is still relevant. It's still strong. It's certainly been helpful throughout this 2020. So we serve people in our community with mobility solutions. And the other element that we will continue to work with is our 3 key pillars. And these 3 key pillars are a way for us to frame the work that we're doing and provide some, sort of another layer of information about our mission statement and how we translate our overarching mission into tangible products or, tangible projects or work efforts and task priorities. So deliver high quality product and service, demonstrate value to the community, and manage and sustain resources. So we've continued with our mission and then these 3 key pillars as a framework around our strategic planning efforts and the work we do in that regard. So some updates based on these priorities and these key pillars is under the delivering high quality product and service is to we're underway with the comprehensive operations analysis, and we will be able to take some of the key ideas from the staff and from the strategic planning and feed those into the work that we're doing on the comprehensive operations analysis, and to some degree with some of the work that's being done on, Nicholasville Road with the Imagine Nicholasville Road corridor. We also have the transit center improvements. So on Vine Street and the platform area, that is the project that is a part of the Town Branch Trail. And so that is underway, albeit a little slowly, but that's happening right now. And then the grant application we have to make improvements to the interior, to the waiting rooms and the back office driver lounge. So, we'll see what happens if we do get that bus and bus facilities grant. And then if we don't, look for some other methods to fund that project. Our real-time information. So, to Ms. Rogers' question earlier about ways to expand real-time information, especially the customer-facing information, and to make it really meaningful and useful for customers. And then also to continue with our training and professional development program. Mr. Combs mentioned that we did the dignity and respect workshop earlier in the year. We'll continue those, or we have planned to continue those next month. I'm sorry, but with the travel advisory, we may have to regroup on the timing of those training sessions. And then we also did sort of a mini training session about responding with how to respond and manage in a time of a pandemic. So continuing with all those priorities with the idea of how we deliver a really high quality product and service. The next key pillar, demonstrating value to the community. And this is almost the opposite side of the coin of our product and service, or the other side of the coin, I could say. Our first key pillar has to do with what we deliver on the street, both in our customer service and then the product of using Lextran. And that's for our riders. So those are rider focused initiatives, things that make it better for our rider. But we also have customers within the community that maybe don't ride. Maybe they don't ride regularly, or maybe they're just an occasional rider. But everyone in Fayette County, as a taxpayer or a member of the community, benefits from Lextran and provides, through property tax dollars. They are our customer as well. So we want to make sure that everybody understands the value of Lextran. That includes the ramp program. If we make an improvement at a bus stop, other people can benefit from that, not just our riders. Want to talk about our marketing campaign and market and explain the value and benefits for Lextran. And the other piece is a customer and community survey. We have not done, as an organization, we have not undertaken a customer community survey. So some of our description or how we see our advantages are self-reported. You know, we feel like it's warranted to explore a customer and community survey, and I think we're going to be able to do that as part of the comprehensive operations analysis. So to get some honest feedback, unbiased feedback from the community about their impressions of Lextran. And then our last or third key pillar, manage and sustain resources. Some of the priorities around there or in this key pillar, you know, are recurring and reporting requirements, grant applications, funding requests, you know, departmental specifics, staffing levels, technology projects, and then our fleet replacement program, and then the Canopy Project, which was a grant award from last year, which we're just getting kicked off right now. So that Canopy Project is the covered storage area for vehicles that will include a number of sustainable elements, a green roof, water collections, and kind of a program or plan for how we may or might expand the electric bus fleet into the future. So manage and sustain resources is one where we spend a lot of work. These are the day-to-day elements, the regulatory requirements, but it is always with you know, a shade or a lens of how do we manage, how do we sustain our resources the best way that we can.
Carrie?
Yeah.
I ask for a favor. I don't know what the best way to do it is. I'm wondering if I'm thinking about we've had a few conversations, I think, about the fleet replacement program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if someone could help the board, maybe directors, if you want to go back and reference. I'm sorry, I know the sound is. If someone could help us go back and reference like which month, or I'm just thinking about identifying the packet that may have the slides where we talk about the fleet replacement program, just to get us grounded as we continue to have these conversations. Or maybe somebody just has the slides ready somewhere and can shoot them back around.
Yes, I will do that if I can't. It wasn't too many months ago, but I can't pull that up off the top of my head right now. But we can send that around. You know, we can send that to the board, and it may be something that we can even add to the website, just so that people understand kind of our method for fleet replacement. You know, we do. I will take this opportunity to underscore the fact that our fleet replacement program is heavily dependent on federal dollars. And in full disclosure, I have a lot of anxiety about everything right now, a pandemic and everything that's happening. Are my kids going back to school? All the good anxiety that we're all facing as a community, but mine is also that our federal authorization bill for transportation funding expires in October. And there's also a presidential election in November. And there are, those federal dollars for our fleet replacement, if we don't have those, or if those funds are uncertain, that can be a big problem for us. So, and I just see, Mr. Ward has said they're in the February packet. Our fleet replacement was mentioned in February.
Thank you.
Okay.
Carrie, I had one quick question, if you don't mind.
Please.
To take a step back to the transit center improvements.
Yes.
Can you elaborate if any of those improvements will address pedestrian access across Vine Street?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. So the first part that I mentioned, that's part of the Town Branch Trail, our part of the town, Lextran's part of the Town Branch Trail is called Zone 2, and part of that project is to add a signalized pedestrian crosswalk, basically where the Phoenix building ends. So kind of at the end of the Phoenix building, and then right to the first driveway on your right if you're coming down Vine Street. And then another signalized pedestrian crosswalk at the end of the transit center, just before Beck Alley. And so that will be, that's a really big improvement for pedestrians to access the transit center. And And then we also have the other part of the project is to make improvements to the platform or the breezeway area. And we'll be adding some of that real-time information signage and doing some general, placemaking right there throughout the transit center to make it really clear about each individual bus bay. So it's been a really exciting project that has been a long time in the making. And if you followed the rest of the Tom Branch Trail and Tom Branch Commons, it's moving along at a pace that is slower than somebody like me likes, but I understand it's a really big project, and once it's done, it's going to be amazing.
Carrie, can I ask a simple question? Maybe me being simple. When you say signalized, are you talking blinking lights? Are you talking crosswalk? What do you mean when you say signalized?
Signalized means that as the pedestrian comes up, there is a light that will stop the vehicles on Vine Street. And if you know for sure, I am now all of a sudden on the spot, like drawing a blank if there's two signals right there, or if just there's the one signal at the end of Beck Alley.
So there'll be two signals. The one at the end of Beck Alley will also serve as signal prioritization for the buses leaving the transit center. So the staging of cars will happen in both places to allow buses to get out.
Perfect.
So am I right in thinking this is kind of similar to the signalized crosswalk on North Broadway at Transy?
No, my understanding is that it's a full stop with a red light, not the flashing yellows.
That's the distinction I was trying to make too. Yeah.
Yeah. What I think I'll do, and I apologize, I should know that more. We're not in charge of that part of this project. That's with LFUCG. So what I'll do is I'll see if maybe the project manager, Brandy Peacher, or somebody that is more intimately familiar with the specifics, if they can maybe make a quick presentation to our board in the next month or two, or not, the next little bit on that project. Because I think that would be good. It's just, like I said, we've had it on the books and it's slowly taking shape, so it might be good to get a good reminder for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Carrie, this is Jamie. One other thing that you said on page 52 that I just thought was so meaningful, it says market and explain the value and benefits for riding Lextran right now for riders, but you said not also for riders. And a light bulb just went off in my head, for example. So I live in Meadowthorpe. It was really important for us to have affordable housing. So we have a new affordable housing complex that's here, but because there's a Lextran route here. So everyone in the neighborhood is now a benefit of Lextran, even though we aren't riding Lextran.
Exactly.
I thought that was an amazing example of how you market the service as a public good is just for riders.
Right. Because if you think about it, just even if you don't ride, somebody that you work with may be riding, or somebody that's that you're teaching in class or everything. So it is really, I think there is a larger economic impact to transit ridership than maybe we talk about all the time, that we talk about enough. So thank you.
One of the large, I think, strategic issues that have emerged, and I hadn't heard mentioned yet, is as we begin to draw down that $13 million COVID grant, what are we going to do with that cash?
Yes, and the hope is that the economy recovers quickly and that our ridership and fare revenue bounce back quickly, and that we do have some cushion or some ability to work on some of those projects. But until we know what's happening with fare collection, ridership, how long the pandemic lasts, the impacts of that pandemic from a staffing standpoint, and then the property tax impacts, if those decline, those will more than likely decline and be delayed. And then, as I mentioned about the federal dollars, so I really am. I feel like maybe I didn't sound optimistic throughout this presentation, but I am an optimist, but I have to be very cautious, and we really want to manage our risk right now, especially from a financial standpoint. Even though the CARES Act funds have been they take away a lot of the anxiousness around finances, but we don't know how long this is going to last, and that's been one of the challenges. Is we don't have an end for the pandemic. I mean, we're now our management team, we're planning until at least January. We're expecting this to last until at least January of 21, and then assess in the fall how much longer it will continue. So
Well, I'm disappointed to hear that because, you know, okay, if it ends in January, we're still talking $13 million. I mean, our fare revenue has never been a big part of our overall revenue, and I think it's unlikely that property tax revenue will go down. In fact, with the last the financial show, the property tax revenue was above budget. So I really think we need to start talking about what is our plan with all that money.
I agree, and I there's a part of me that shares your optimism, but I think
I'm not optimistic. I'm just being realistic. We need to talk about that.
Okay, great. Well,
do we not? I mean, do we not? I mean, shouldn't we be talking about that? It's not on our list of strategic issues.
Right, and we want to again some of our focus is changes or has a lens of being able to respond to the pandemic and make sure that we are financially secure and sound coming out of it, however long it lasts. But I agree with you, and when we can I think this is a great step to begin the discussion about how we refocus and other projects that we work on through the CARES Act and through our recovery from the COVID pandemic. So that's a great next step, and that's an excellent segue into this slide about.
Well, I think the issue is, do we spend it or do we keep it in the bank? That's kind of a major thing we need to decide as a board.
Right, definitely.
Well, Rick, I think that's a false binary. I don't think we have to do one or the other. I think there's a likely balance of those two. Would you agree?
I agree. We need to talk about it, and we haven't, and it hasn't even been mentioned. And no, it's not binary, but if we're worried about the future, we should probably consider keeping it in the bank. We are worried about kind of our cash flow into the next 5 years is going underwater, and I think we should consider. Yeah, I think that's a major issue right now that we need to really think about.
And so, and one thing I think to add is January's also optimistic. I think some of the things that we've saying is that the bigger implications are going to be in 2021 and 2022. A lot of real estate can't be moved fast. If people are getting rid of real estate, it'll be a long-term competition. So people who are selling off corporate real estate will take 2-3 years before budget impact is really being forecasted long-term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And maybe I shouldn't have even said January. I just mean that we anticipate, masks, and so all those things that we're dealing with at least until January. So,
I have some questions.
Yeah, great, please.
I am concerned. I know the 13 million from the CARES funds. I think that it probably should be kept in like a rainy day fund, or till we better know what where we stand. But, and I'm concerned with the fleet replacement program. If we're not on top of things, we don't put money in the budget for new vehicles, then, and we rely on those federal funds that it's going to put us in a bad situation. I know I brought this up during our budget talks that I feel like the fleet replacement should be in the budget somewhat. And then if you get the federal funds, great, but better safe than sorry is the way I see that. And go ahead.
All I was going to say is I agree, and I think our immediate challenge to being able to be responsive to these questions is I don't know, and I think, but what I will suggest that we do is either in August or September that we come back with at least the sort of broad strokes of the paths that we will go down with regard to the cash reserve or fund balance, how we can manage the sort of the fleet replacement program, kind of like the minimum and the maximum, and what we do, and then the other is how that sort of balance between the CARES Act funding and maybe new projects if things lean to our favor. So that maybe in the August or September timeframe we bring those back, and part of that reason I say to have some of the general paths for each of those really important and critical elements of our organization is that until we know what happens with our property tax in November, and until we know what happens with fare collection, we're going to be a little bit grasping at straws. And again, I would defer to the board, but I wouldn't want to make a recommendation too quickly that puts us at risk when we can maybe let's wait 3 or 4 months before we get into the real specifics and the specific dollar amounts. But I do think it warrants to come back in the next month or two with some general those 3 subject areas and move forward with that. Does that sound amenable to the board, that we sort of revisit this with more specifics, but not maybe down to the dollars and cents and exact penny, because we won't really know until maybe November, December about our local funds, and we will have at least some indication of where the federal funds are at that point. Maybe have good news back then, in November. But
This is Nikki. I just wanted to make a comment on what Carrie said. Our audit firm had set up some roundtable meetings with other transit agencies, and I attended a number of those. There were transit agencies, I think there were about 40 transit agencies represented, and most of them are waiting 18 to 24 months to see what's going to happen, because there's so many different funding types for transit agencies, property tax, sales tax, things like that. But most of them have recommended, and the auditors have also recommended, waiting 18 to 24 months before actually, planning on, spending the money, other than getting reimbursements for your PPE and things like that. But that has been a huge topic of discussion with transit agencies.
George, you were trying to get in there.
Yeah, let me just to inform the board. Christian and I had a conversation with Carrie and Nikki. It's been a month or 2 ago about this, and as you've heard, through the conversation here, there are a lot of unknowns. So it's difficult to come up with a strategy today, but it will be an agenda item on the finance committee's meetings, from here on until we have a plan. So just know that we're very aware of it, and we are looking at a lot of options, but we just need to see what's going to happen with some of the various other revenue streams that come to Lextran. So for an example, if UK stays in session, the UK revenue is probably pretty solid. If something happens and everybody has to be sent home again, then that changes a lot. If we can't collect, fares on the buses, it's over $1 million a year, which is a small part of our revenue, but it's still $1 million. And then on the property taxes, what the issue is on the commercial side, anybody that leases space and all of a sudden, their ability to lease that space is greatly reduced, they're gonna ask for concessions from the property valuation administration. So, we really want to see, where that comes out. But there's a lot of good uses for the money, and we just need to make sure, what that is, so we don't get in front of our coverage, so to speak.
Thank you, George. George, you beat me to it.
My biggest concern is that, we have an understanding where the money is, what it's being used for, and, just what the plan is going forward, and not just not mention it at all. So I'm glad it was brought up. But,
And that's what I hear. Thank you, Peggy. And that's what I hear from the board. It's just the desire to have a conversation where we kind of identify some priorities. And I don't know if you might have mentioned it if we got to the budget considerations, Carrie, but I think that's what I'm hearing. So we know it's sort of like the big thing in the room, and it's not reflected in the in the slides. And so I think that's probably where that's coming from. But I do think it makes sense too. We know that there are indicators that we're watching for. But it also makes sense to, at some point in the next meeting or two, have some time set aside to be able to at least talk about some priorities.
Exactly. And as we talked, if anybody can remember back to January when we started this strategic planning effort, it really was to think about our strategy, our priorities, the other things we want to do, what's important to us outside of the financial considerations. So I had intentionally not focused on the dollars and cents and finances for this presentation because it was the wrap up and the summary of our strategic priorities. But certainly, as you mentioned, Mr. Motley, the specter of the finances, it looms large, and we will continue with that focus. And we have our 2021 budget that was approved last month, and our 5-year capital plan. So those things are available if people wish to look at those as well. So that is happy to have some more questions, and this was an excellent discussion. I really appreciate everybody listening and providing feedback. This was great. I love the engagement. Me, I can talk about transit forever and Lextran on and these video calls, I've got to make sure that I let people ask questions. So thank you for everybody's time and attention. And that is the end of this presentation right now. So I don't know that we have any other business items on the agenda. There's no change order, new business proposed agenda item. So that's it.
I just had one last comment on the strategic planning update, Carrie. It's just, I was looking at the particular piece around continuing to engage stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And I know that we mentioned the community survey, which I think is important. And then I also wonder if we've identified, like who our key stakeholders are. I don't know who they might be, but like Kentucky Refugee Ministries, UK, maybe the school district. And just, I wonder about those specific stakeholders that we might reach out and engage, and how we might benefit from their input as well in a very kind of specific and intentional way.
Yeah, that's a great thought, is that in these types of endeavors, you want to do both, cut across the community for as many individual voices and customers, riders, community members, but also some of those key strategic stakeholders are good. And the one thing that I will add, just as far as general community engagement and marketing communications, we are working on a series of how to ride videos or small clips, because we can't do as much of that in person. We go to a community group and we go to their meeting and we bring everybody and get, so we're working on some more virtual ways to do it, and even looking at a way to schedule those really easily online. So we've got to do, and circling back to even that sort of first general trend is we have to now work in an especially varied space of media and communications, because some is virtual, some is online, some people want, face-to-face interaction. So we got to cover the full range of marketing and communication needs, both for the survey, but just in general for what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carrie. There are no other thoughts there, as Carrie mentioned.
I have a question for Carrie, I guess, if she could provide me an update on the refinancing of the administrative building.
Sure. We have not had a finance committee meeting, so I was going to bring that back to the finance committee at the next meeting in September. We did not. The evaluation committee rejected the one proposal that we received, so I was going to bring that back to the finance committee for their recommendation on next steps.
Okay. I think when we originally voted on this, it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, so we went out for a proposal to refinance the commercial loan. We got one proposal back, and then that one proposal was rejected by the evaluation committee. Sort of due to the proposal was rejected by the evaluation committee. So we can bring that. I will defer if we want to take that to the finance committee, or we want to bring that up for a decision point for the full board next month.
George, when's the next finance committee meeting?
It's September 24th, I think. Nikki, do you have that?
It is September 30th at 9 a.m.
September 30th at 9 a.m.
Okay.
We might consider offline what's the best kind of cadence for that, and just come back and give everybody an update. Because I do want to make sure the finance committee gets a look at that, because I know they would be engaged in that process.
I don't understand why it needs to go back to the board or the finance committee. Haven't we already decided we wanted to refinance it? Don't we just put it out for bid again?
It sounds like the committee needs to take a look at the elements that might have been, if the proposal was rejected, it might sound like there needs to be a conversation about the elements of the proposal and how best to move forward.
This is really dragging out a very long time.
Sure. The other sort of complexity with this proposal is that refinancing that loan is in fact under the purview of Lextran Real Properties, because the loan has to do with this property. The Lextran board is ultimately not the decision maker on the loan refinancing. So we took the evaluation committee's decision to the Lextran Real Properties board, and they told us to bring it back to Lextran. So we went back to the finance committee, or presumably the finance committee. If anybody would like to take a faster pace on that, we can reschedule another meeting for a sooner meeting for the finance committee, or the Lextran board at the next. I will defer to the board on doing that. But I just want to make that clear that because this loan has to do with the funding of the headquarters project, it's up to the Lextran Real Properties board, not the Lextran board, as to what we do. But they did defer back to this board because that one proposal was rejected.
Yeah. And my memory was that we needed a couple of approvals in that process for that to be able to happen. And so
yes.
Let me get if the board is okay. I mean, I just want to touch base with George and Adrian, just have a conversation about like what the right cadence is.
Great, thank you.
no new business, no closed session, no more to discuss here. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Peggy.
Is that a motion? Was that a motion from Peggy? Thanks, Peggy. Is there a second?
Second, Jamie Rogers.
Thanks, Jamie. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning. Thanks. Bye.